Wait, don't scroll. If you're thinking about going to med school, here are a few things you really need to know before you decide whether going in or not. Med school can be expensive, and I mean really expensive. There are so many costs that are basically they're hidden costs that are part about being a med school student. It's not just your accommodation, it's not just your, tuition fees if you pay for tuition fees, depending. There are other things such as transport, placement clothes. There's a specific like dress code, unless you have like scrubs that your university gives you. Not all schools have those. And thinking about getting a part-time job can be quite difficult, especially with the type of schedule that you have in med school, because it can be quite unpredictable, especially when you get into clinical years. And so that means part-time jobs might not be something you can be able to do. And I don't think, at least on the financial sense, that no med school is created equal in this particular instance. So there not might not be financial support that will be helpful or that exists for you to use, and that is all dependent on, things that you need to research. So I say if you are thinking about going to med school, think about what kind of resources your med school will have, or does or doesn't have, because that can be a big difference. And there are a lot of med school students that are struggling to be able to keep themselves afloat and still be able to do everything. Like some med schools might not even do reimbursement for travel, so you might be out of pocket for that. We're in a cost of living crisis. Like, it's not a joke. Like, think about that before you go in. And I think it's important to note that school or becoming a medical doctor in the past was really put, or at least tailored towards people who were from more affluent backgrounds. And so nowadays they are trying to, like, increase the reach of students from different multicultural backgrounds, or diverse backgrounds, I should be saying. But it doesn't mean that the resources have actually caught up with the fact that they're trying to do this. So to keep that in mind. Med school is so long. I can't even lie to you. Most average courses are about 3 years. You might get the fourth year if you do a placement year, but in med school is a bit different. You can be in med school for about 5 to 6 years, maybe 7. If you did a degree before that, you might be even close to a decade being at university. It's a long time to be, when you see most people are probably like leaving academia, getting their job and stuff. That is a number of few years that you are technically, would I even say behind? If that's the word for it, you might have a better word for it, as in a number of years where you are out of not making money. You're still in that student life. And that is something you need to consider if you are going into medicine. Med school can be very stressful, especially when you have placement, you're juggling schoolwork, you're juggling, exams, everything, life in general. There's a lot to deal with med school. It's not the same. The intensity is very different to other degrees. Obviously, there are other courses that can be intense, but I think medicine has its own unique intensity that I think it is takes a unique person to be able to deal with it. So really search within yourself to actually decide this is something that you really want to do, because it is something that I think people really need to consider before they go in. There are a lot of things that can be left to chance. And if you're somebody who likes, rigid schedules, you like to know exactly what you're doing in the day, you like to plan ahead of time, med school might not be the one for you. Medicine is highly unpredictable and it starts as early as med school. You will be forced to have timetables that you haven't even seen yet. You probably won't have a timetable yet and find out the day before the placement's supposed to begin that you're doing this, this, and this. And that can be quite stressful if you, especially if you want to plan things ahead of time. You might not be able to. The most you can probably decide is a week before in advance, and that's if you're lucky. So pay attention. If the idea of having that so-called maybe work-life balance, school life balance, if you want to talk about it, can be achievable in med school, but you will have to work the extra mile if you want to do medicine. And also, it's important to note that there's a new system that we have at the moment. When you finish medical school, you might not even know where you can live. And it's not just the foundation program that we have. There is other times within training pathways that is if you go into a training pathway, but you probably won't know where you live from year to year. So that is something you need to consider if you're going into medicine. Kind of ties into, med school being long, but the career itself is long. The whole thing when you apply to med school and you say, I really want to go into med school for lifelong learning. That lifelong learning is real. Do not take it lightly. You will continuously be learning 24/7. You obviously have your breaks and stuff, like I'm just trying to say on the overall majority you will be learning a lot. And that is a great thing for a lot of people, but at the same time when you like do specific things, whether it is upskilling, this is all things that you will have to do in your own time on top of the work that you have with your own money. I think there might be some reimbursements for some things, but it's really expensive and quite long. So you need to think about this. Is medicine something you see yourself doing career progression? Especially as you can see, probably you've seen on TikToks where there are people who've worked in medicine for 20 plus years and they're only just reaching, if they do manage to reach the 100,000 mark. Not saying no, not saying money is the be all and end all of everything, but I think people do want to live a comfortable life for the amount of work that they put in.